All right, hi everyone. Welcome back to Nick in China. I'm going to give you a bit of an update on the situation here in China. So we're going to look at a few things. We're going to look at numbers, kind of how things are looking, because there is this fear of obviously the second wave, which we've talked about a little bit in some other videos. We're going to talk about schools reopening, because that's the main thing that hasn't really come back fully to normal yet. And we're going to talk about entry to the country, which is still quite a lot of strict rules on there, and just a few other little things as well. Okay, let's get started. So I'll show you a little bit of footage throughout the video as well, just to give you a break from looking at my face. But first we're going to talk about the numbers here in China. So there's been a lot made about this in the media, obviously, because it's something that is a concern for every country. Most places are still going through their, obviously, what we call the first wave. And in Asia, there's a lot of talk of the second wave of the virus and how it's what kind of impact that's going to have. Now in China, there's been a bit of an increase recently in the number of new cases. At the moment, like the last 2 days, there was actually 46 cases on April the 14th and 46 on the 15th, yesterday. But most of those are still imported. I think on the 14th of April, there was 36 of those 46 were imported cases, people coming back to China from abroad. And on the 15th, there was 34, which means there is still a little bit of, obviously, domestic spread of this virus, which is the main worry, of course. Here in China, obviously, anyone who comes into the country, they're still quarantining everyone for 14 days, which can hopefully control, obviously, the people coming back into the country carrying coronavirus. So the amount of actual new domestic cases is not too many. The actual total numbers at the moment in China there are currently 1,941 active cases. Most of those are in people who've returned to China, about 1,500 of those. And there's also just over 1,032 asymptomatic cases. Now in China, the way that they are kind of judging their statistics, basically, if you're an asymptomatic case, you are not included into the active cases unless you've developed symptoms. It's measured on a different scale, if that makes sense. I don't know why, but that's how they're doing it. Most of the new cases that are appearing in China are along the Russian border, so northern China, particularly northeastern China, in a province called Heilongjiang in the far northeast, and also Inner Mongolia. So some of these border points, I guess people must be coming back into China that way, and it's causing a bit of a uptick in cases, which is not great. But obviously, I'm sure they're being very vigilant at the border towns and obviously trying to keep that under control. So apart from that, the only other update here in Xi'an, where I live, is, well, there isn't much of an update. There are still 2 cases left in hospital, 2 active cases. We haven't had any new domestic cases here for a really, really long time, which is great news. So they are the numbers. Right, let's move on to the schools. All right, so with schools, I mentioned in my previous video, some students have already started to go back here. So the high school seniors, the kids who are getting ready essentially to go to university, they've already gone back. They're staggering it kind of year by year here. But we've got some more information on other students going back now, which is good. So grades 7 to 11 will be going back on the 20th of April, which is in a few days' time. And then a week later, on the 27th, grades 4 to 6, so they're primary school, they're going back. Yeah, they go back on the 27th. For the really young kids, so grades 1 to 3, we still don't have any word, so we're waiting to hear what happens there. And universities also, there's still no information on that yet. I've said this a few times because I work in a university. I don't think universities are going to go back this semester. I don't think so anyway, because it would involve millions of students moving around the country. But we're just going to wait and see what information we get. The other thing about education that we've heard is the Gaokao exam, which is like the high school final exams, university entrance examinations. They've been delayed a month, so they've been put back. Some places are doing this a little bit differently. I think Beijing and Shanghai kind of have their own rules about this, but the rest of the country are kind of following the same thing of delaying it a month, pushing it back further into the summer. Right, that's all about schools. So on entry to China now, there's still obviously some quite strict rules in play. No foreigners are allowed to enter China still. It's been in place for a few weeks now. So it's only Chinese nationals can come back into the country. And as I've said a few times, anyone who enters the country is now still quarantined for 14 days in a hotel. Again, mentioned it before. A good friend of mine has actually been through this and came back and had to stay in a hotel for, actually it was 15 days he stayed in a hotel. And it's obviously, it must be not the nicest of things to do, but obviously it's quite a necessary thing to ensure that we stop the spread of this virus. So that's still in play. Those rules are still in play. The other thing that is still in play is any flights going into Beijing, international flights. Beijing, of course, being the main international hub in mainland China. Flights coming into Beijing are being redirected to 12 different cities. The idea, of course, is to make sure that one city, i.e. Beijing, doesn't get inundated with loads of cases. For want of a better term, kind of spread it around a little bit. The cities that are being have been chosen to have these flights redirected to are, and I'm going to read this, apologies, Tianjin, Shijiazhuang, Taiyuan, Hohhot, Shanghai Pudong, Jinan, Qingdao, Nanjing, Shenyang, Dalian, Zhengzhou, and here in Xi'an. So that's the current situation on flights. When restrictions will get lifted, to be honest, it's not going to be anytime soon. Of course not until kind of this whole world has this situation under control. So the situation with things being open again here is, well, pretty much everything is open now. Schools are about the last thing to really be fully up and running again. Some of the tourist sites have all started to reopen in a kind of a limited capacity. So basically, a lot of the tourist sites in Xi'an, they are open again, but they're free, which is great because usually you buy a ticket, but you've got to kind of book a slot online. I guess there's two reasons for that. Firstly, it's so that they know who's going, again, part of contact tracing and things like that. And also because they have limited places that people can go there. So basically, so places don't get too crazy busy. I'm not sure if you saw some of the photos from Huangshan, the Yellow Mountain, when it reopened. It looked a bit mad. So I think they're trying to limit how many people are actually going to these places. Also, recently, the most famous site in Xi'an reopened. That's the Terracotta Warriors. Same thing, although it's not free apparently. I might go actually just because it's usually so busy, but they have these kind of limited slots. There's no tourists here, obviously, at the moment. I'm tempted to go and have a look because it would be nice to see the Terracotta Warriors without any people there. So basically, things are getting pretty much back to normal at the moment. Schools are absolutely the last thing that's getting going. Right, that's the end of the video. I've been out a lot this week, by the way, so I've taken loads and loads of footage. I will do another video in a couple of days because I've got loads and loads of stuff to show you. So keep safe, everybody. If you've got any questions at all, please let me know. And yeah, look after yourself. Stay indoors. Bye-bye. Take care.